Well, welcome everyone. And again, thank you for joining this evening for our meet and greet with new Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez. My name is Ed Potasnik, and I'm the Executive Director of New Jersey LCV. We are the political voice for the environment here in New Jersey, and we're a nonprofit organization that guides and educates to protect our families and communities and safeguard our natural resources now and for future generations. We provide the public policymakers, like the one we have this evening, and opinion leaders with sound, objective information that encourage strong, equitable, and environmentally just solutions. We endorse candidates for office. We work with them once they get elected. And quite frankly, often we hold them accountable to ensure that good environmental policies can be supported by environmental champions and that we have protections in place for our health, for the environment, and to make sure we have beautiful places that we can safeguard. A few Zoom tips before we get started as a reminder. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. We ask that during the webinar, everyone please stay muted. If you have any comments or questions for the Assemblywoman, we'll be taking those questions from the chat, and then we're going to answer those towards the end of the webinar. And before we go into introducing the Assemblywoman, I want to take some time to thank tonight's sponsors, the co-sponsors for the evening: New Jersey Policy Perspective, the Latino Action Network Foundation, Beyond the Ballot, Social Justice Matters, and the Waterfront Alliance. We're really pleased to be working with you and for your continued partnership in this important work as we work together to keep New Jersey beautiful. This evening, we have the pleasure of speaking with the new Assemblywoman of the 32nd District, who represents Jersey City and Hoboken, Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez, who is also a New Jersey LCV endorsee. We're happy to have you with us. The Assemblywoman hails from Jersey City, moving to New Jersey as a young child from Puerto Rico, and without knowing any English. She grew up to be the first in her family to go to college and graduated right here from New Jersey, Stockton University, and earned her Juris Doctor from Seton Hall University School of Law. With her law degree, the Assemblywoman works at a law firm as a civil attorney representing individuals who suffer from assault and abuse. The Assemblywoman is a passionate and committed legislator and lawyer and resides in Jersey City with her two children. So welcome, Assemblywoman. We're really pleased to have you with us. And I think before we get started into some questions, is there anything you want to do for opening remarks so we can get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. So I only have one child. He's 18. No worries. Just one baby. Who's 18. He's a senior and going to Arizona State Business School. Mom is very proud. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, I was born in Puerto Rico in a little small very proud. Came here. My parents were the first ones to come to the United States. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, they all stayed behind. We lived in the Atlantic City area. Humble roots. My dad was a maintenance worker at school. Mom was just, odd jobs trying to get by. Really proud New Jersey girl and Puerto Rican girl. And this is my first time ever running for office, ever. I'm sure there's a study that many women have heard that you have to ask a woman to run about 6 times for them to say yes. And that is really what happened in my world. I've been an attorney for over 20 years. And I've done a lot of immigration work. I represent how I kind of got into politics is I was doing a lot of seminars, know your rights, workers' rights, domestic violence work. And I kind of got known in the scene because I was going to every church, any consulate office that would have me to talk about workers' rights and sex assault victims. And I speak Spanish, and that's really how I got involved. And I was asked a few times, and of course I was scared. I'm like, absolutely not. That I just want to be able to do good work. And then I kept being asked again, and I said, well, maybe it's about time that I put up or shut up, right? Because I'm constantly saying this is messed up. This has to change. And here I am, 3 months in as a baby legislator.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised to hear that your son has grown, and your career is as long. So congratulations on that as well. So talk to me a little bit. So when you're working in the community, you're going out and you're talking, and you're providing education. Is that something you just did like sort of on your own? Was that part of like a nonprofit? Is that part of your
Sure.
outreach work? What kind of motivated you? That's a unique sort of hobby.
Sure. So I was also a solo for 10 years, down in the Atlantic City area. And again, just going through what we kind of go through life based on our own experiences. And we didn't speak any English. I did ESL classes for 5 years. And a lot of the things, a lot of the pain and heartbreak that I went through, my family went through, my peers, was not knowing. So when you come here and you don't speak the language and you're not part of, you don't feel like part of the world, you don't feel part of the community. And there's so many things that we went through just because we didn't know. And
Mm.
now I'm like blessed, right? I've got myself through college, got myself through law school. I felt, I still feel, right? What is that? I still can't believe that I'm here. And it was my responsibility to provide information to my people is really how it started.
Okay.
And because of different organizations that knew me, they would ask me to just come and speak. And I saw the need for that. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to continue to do this just on my own. And I enjoy it. I really enjoy going out and providing information, how to get a restraining order, how to get a final restraining order. The laws, the domestic violence laws here in New Jersey are really strict, or we actually have one of the best domestic violence laws. And just seeing every day, in the beginning of my career, I had a contract with the public defender's office. So I'm representing indigent people and just seeing again, real life and what happens. And again, if I have the information, why not share it? So really, I guess it was a passion of mine, and well, it was a need, then became a passion, and I lived it. So that's
Yeah.
that's how it started.
Well, I think that's really fantastic. And so you're out there, you're providing these presentations. You mentioned a number of times folks asked you to run for office. A number
Mhm.
of times you said no. Then suddenly you said yes. Can you talk a little bit about, well, why did you finally say yes? What was it about that moment in particular, and about the work that you saw yourself doing, how that sort of fit in with your career and your commitments and passion?
Sure. I think it's because I finally got the courage. I'm older now and I feel more supported. And I feel in the beginning, I had a young child and I couldn't do both. I couldn't make a living and be a good mom. And I mean, it's still very hard, but in the beginning, it was really difficult. And I didn't know how. I didn't have the support. And now, as an older woman, and now I have a big support system. My son is older. I feel like I know the world a little bit more. And again, just seeing the injustice of, what my clients go through. Again, I finally have a chance to really put up or shut up. So now that my son is going to go to college, and now that, he's not with me, I said, you know what, this is my chance. Why not do this and try it out? And it's still really scary. I still feel really overwhelmed. I still feel like I'm still learning the ropes. I'm still messing up. I'm still, it is definitely overwhelming, but I'm trying to, I just want to do good. So I just keep thinking about that I'm just trying to do good in the world. And I feel like I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular person trying to make people's lives just a little bit easier.
Well, if I would just say, if you're not messing up, you're probably not doing something that's a little uncomfortable or pushing the envelope in some way. And likely, what you consider a mess up is probably because you're not fitting into the nice little box that they've carved out. Because it's really a very challenging and not an easy decision to run for office. And
Mhm.
those of us who have, But putting your name on the ballot opens up you to a whole new level of scrutiny. It's very personal, even though it's about trying to deliver that message. So really kudos to you and hats off. And,
Thank you.
it's exciting to have that perspective being brought in. And I think one of the things that's also kind of interesting, if we look at the legislature in New Jersey, it's a majority older white males, which is not representative of New Jersey's demographics whatsoever. And so I guess, are there people that you look up to who have paved the way for women, people of color and younger individuals to run for state legislature that help be a guiding sort of beacon or light in this sort of place that is fairly homogenous and, again, sort of a mismatch for what we know is the beautiful diversity and tapestry of New Jersey?
For sure. First I want to say now that I'm here, like you really want to do this because it is very difficult. Sometimes people ask me, how's Trenton? And then my answer sometimes is Trenton is the easy part, like going back to local politics and coming back home to Jersey City. That's the most difficult part of Hudson County politics. But yes, absolutely. If it wasn't for my support system, and again, now I keep going back to being older and being more confident, because I think the older I've gotten, the more confident I've gotten. I was definitely more insecure in my younger years. And now that I've been an attorney for a longer amount of time as well, that brings confidence. And I've been part of different organizations. That's been a big help. I'm part of the New Jersey Association for Justice, the American Association for Justice. And those two organizations have really helped me being part of the women trial lawyers. And those women really are so wonderful. And I have definitely my rock stars and my mentors. If it wasn't for my mentors, even when I was asked to run, I didn't say yes right away. I said I needed about a week. And I really decided at 5 o'clock on the 7th day, because I really wanted to take my time and think about this. And I remember the first few days I spoke to my mentors, and then I stopped speaking to everybody because I didn't want them. I wanted my own space, my own headspace. But for sure, having mentors is such a important thing. So any young women, young people that are listening to this, be out there, become part of organizations that you really believe in. And then there's all the smaller, right, the women trial lawyers and all the other smaller groups that really help out. And if it wasn't for them, and still to this day, those are my backbone and who I bounce ideas off of, or if there's bills that are interesting, I send them to them as well. What do you think is interesting about this?
Well, we have some questions from the chat, which I know we'll get to, that dig in a little bit more on some of your interests and background. So we'll kind of go back to that after we go forward, looking at environmental issues. So both Jersey City and Hoboken are coastal communities, beautiful along the Hudson, beautiful skyline of New York City. Many people are traveling to the city, hopefully on the rails, but sometimes through the Holland Tunnel. It's also a very densely populated area with limited green spaces, and we see flooding, air pollution from transportation. The number one sort of air pollution source, particularly for climate change, is transportation. It's mostly car traffic, and then also access to parks are some of the important issues that we work with in your area in Legislative District 32. So from your perspective, Assemblywoman, what are some of the key environmental issues that you want to tackle in the district and in New Jersey writ large, both from your experience and as you look ahead to your career and your work in the legislature?
Yeah, definitely the flooding is a big issue. I'm by the water myself, so I have to go through the flooding issue. So of course, improve stormwater management is really big. And absolutely the air pollution. I live right by the Holland Tunnel. So promoting public transportation, supporting electric vehicles, that's huge.
Yeah.
And also the park access, I mean, it's so important. Improving public transportation options to get to parks is a huge deal. And also waste management. I mean, like especially the more the city gets, the more buildings we build, what are we doing with our waste management? That's also a big deal, and the water quality. Now that I've been, again, a new legislator, I'm visiting so many different sites, and one of the best sites I went to was the North Jersey District Water Supply Commission. It was beautiful. And also I'm, again, I'm new, and I've really been concentrating on the sex assault issues and workers' rights. But being born in Puerto Rico and being born in the mountains, you are you're environmentalist by heart, because we were very, very, humble people. So I didn't know I was such an environmentalist until I came to the United States, and just how I preserve my water, how crazy I am about, water and waste management, because we had to be when you live in Puerto Rico and, 81, 82, the early 80s. Still, it's not that it's, it's great now, but especially back then you had to be. But absolutely, they're all important, and living in an urban area, I live it. I see it every day.
Well, and one of the things that I saw when I was in Jersey City is sort of the combined sewer outfalls. These are like these little openings when the combined sewer system, which mixes the rainwater with the water from your toilets, and
Sure.
that works normally when it's not raining. It rains a little bit, it's okay. But when it rains a lot, especially in a short period of time, and these are not catastrophic sort of events, the sewage plant is overwhelmed. It can't process the water as fast because it really is made more to deal with, and this happens in urban environments, like little road pollution into the drain, some flushing water. With climate change, we're seeing more intense and frequent storms, and that means over and more frequently, they're having to open a little valve, and that valve just puts raw sewage right out in the Hudson River and the Bay. And, we're very supportive of addressing stormwater to reduce the amount that flows out. Things like green infrastructure, which Hoboken has had a lot of investments in, and Jersey City is making their way there. And also just there's about $16 billion of work that needs to happen to retain that water, hold on to it, and clean it up. We prefer nature-based systems. And we've been very supportive of a stormwater utility, which helps to, sort of charge for impervious cover and then use that money for the laundry list of things that we inherited from our parents and grandparents, and, folks that had previously developed those lands where they didn't put in any stormwater infrastructure. They didn't think about it. It just wasn't part of, the long-term vision. But now we're dealing with, New Jersey is the most densely populated state, and the stuff is just rolling unabated out, and because of it, raw sewage. So that's something we definitely look forward to working with you. It's more of a city decision. In 2018, the governor signed that into law, so now it's legal. And towns, municipalities, counties, regional areas can create these utilities and start to really tackle the stormwater pollution, clean it up, hold on to it, and keep it from flooding communities, and keep raw sewage from going into our waterways. So that's a big issue. And then particularly Liberty State Park, we're just so grateful to you. You have been a great supporter of the plans that the Department of Environmental Protection Agency has for the revitalization of Liberty State Park. It reflects what the residents want. What we need for this amazing green space, which was, an entry port for so many folks within our region, but also in an area that is developed. It is one of the last remaining open spaces, and we've been committed to working with folks in the local community to keep it the people's park. And I know we stand alongside of you with that. Do you want to share a little bit more about why you're in support of protecting Liberty State Park from the private commercialization interests that have been sort of gnawing at it for decade after decade, and instead, investing in plans that make the property and the park itself available to the people in perpetuity as a green space that is, not going to be, commercialized to the point where it's not recognizable. And I know that's been a sort of contentious issue locally, but if you want to share a little bit as a Jersey City resident,
Sure.
your important work.
I'm a Jersey City resident. I love that park. I spend a lot of time in that park. Raj Mukherjee, our senator as well. We've been, I remember when we first met and, he was eyeing me down. I was eyeing him down of whether we were going to run together and how we were going to do this. And we spoke a lot about Liberty State Park. And that's when he's like, oh, I didn't know that you were an environmentalist, just because I absolutely agreed with him. And we have to keep this state park clean. We have to keep it for us open. All the meetings that I've had with the Environmental Protection Agency here in Jersey City. It's been very interesting, and I go back and forth with them. I'm like, well, of course, who's against this? Why would anybody be against these plans? It makes absolute sense. So I just think that it's a no-brainer. Why we would commercialize the park. I don't think that's what people want. I don't think the people, right, the residents want that. Just the business owners may have different plans, but the people have been very vocal against it. And I'm one of the people. I'm a resident here, not a business owner that wants to privatize the park. So I think that we're always going to be committed to that. I know my whole team, my delegation, myself, John Allen, and Senator Mukherjee are definitely going to be champion and always behind the park for sure.
Well, thank you. And we need that, quite frankly, because there are deep-pocketed business interests that have been spending so much money in trying to make it be a different project, and a project that really would diminish the experience for community members, and cause lots of traffic. And with it, at least before every car is electric, air pollution, are inaccessible. And I didn't plan this, but Friends of Liberty State Park also give you a shout out in the chat, for standing up at the April 9th DEP public meeting for the DEP's Liberty State Park revitalization process and opposing the privatization plan. So we're on the same page, which is great because they're our friends and the friends of Liberty State Park as well. It's funny, I got a text message from a friend of mine who lives, that I went to college with, who lives in Jersey City. And he's like, what's this? I hear about flooding Liberty State Park. And I didn't have to look at it. I just said, oh, I know exactly who that is. We won't name the person, but that's misinformation. And, the folks in Jersey City are smart. They often are working in the city. These are very professional people, and I think they're not buying. And I hope that your leadership as an influencer and elected official in that community, that they're listening to the right folks. I always remain hopeful that people can parse out information, because they're just totally skewing it completely and trying to scare people. And I think the park is going to be beautiful. I think the DP has done a fabulous job in getting real people like yourself before you were elected, families, businesses in the community engaged, sharing information and tweaking the plan so it can be historically representative and be a beautiful place to go back and think about the history, and also provide appropriate amenities while keeping it green and accessible for the local community as well. So it's one of the most visited state parks. So I can keep going, but I got lots.
It's beautiful. I mean, and it's just
so
beautiful. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense, the other side. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, there's some profit motive there. Someday we'll find out, but hopefully it doesn't become a reality because we'll stick together. And that's what, this is about. And we appreciate our partnership. So New Jersey is going to continue to be more and more diverse. With time, we have seen the state get new immigrant families, and change from a majority white state. And so as a leader of New Jersey LCV and partnering with a lot of environmental groups, I wonder if you could share a little bit about how organizations and advocates can ensure that we communicate and we continue to engage with a broader way of constituents. And you mentioned you didn't know you were an environmentalist until you came, and you started to see like how different it is here. I actually, polling shows this is a good thing to do, because new immigrant families are more supportive of environmental protection than folks that have been around the block. And for us, that means if we're not communicating properly, if we're not connecting, we're missing out on a big opportunity to deliver on the convictions and what's in the best interests of the families. And I might just mention one other thing, which is oftentimes the pollution and the pollution generating facilities that are harming our air, water, and land are in areas where there is a higher concentration of communities of color and low-income families. And so, yeah, any advice you would give groups like ours or other organizations that care deeply about these issues and making that connection?
So I can only speak of what's worked for me. And a lot of times just as human beings, we speak on based on what we've been through is community outreach. Not mailers, right? People just throw them out and it's just a waste of environmental resources, but being out and doing community outreach, and education, going out to the schools and start teaching young, storytelling, right? Going out and using people like myself to talk about growing up in Calle and coming here and the beauty and how I didn't know I was an environmentalist. Making sure that if you are doing any handouts, that they're also in different languages. That's also very important. But I want to say that community outreach is pretty much the most in coming to people. I was somewhere this weekend, and they had this, the city had this big event, and they had all these great programs at a school. And not a lot of people went. And I said, you know what, you should bring it to the people, bring it to the apartments, bring it to, they really wanted to help poor people, bring it to the projects. I mean, sometimes you have to, that's how I do things. I go to them. I'm not going to have them come to me. When I've tried to do something at my office, I don't get a lot of people. So I would definitely just do a lot of community outreach and going to the people.
I think those things all make a ton of sense. And this is virtual, so it's like easy for folks to get there, but we're always looking for opportunities to get more involved. And I know Isabel, I'll give her a quick shout out from my staff, Isabel Molina, spending a lot of time in Jersey City working on the Liberty State Park plan that the DEP has put forward. So we definitely appreciate that. So I guess this is
collaborations as well, right? With different community organizations and cultural centers, religious institutions, like wherever you can get outreach and it's more one-on-one. I think we kind of, even if it's on the internet, we kind of, are clicking by or just going through it quickly. But once you start talking to people, or at least that's what I've found myself. And if you're going to do any marketing, I think the radio is really, really helpful, more so than the internet, more so than the television. Again, to get any community outreach programs out there. But yeah, that's the only things I can think of that have worked for me.
No, I think it's fabulous. Thank you. And if you have a question for the Assemblywoman, you can put it in the chat. I know a lot of folks have already done that, so we'll be getting to those in just a minute.
I don't have my glasses on. I didn't want to put them on yet, so I can't.
Oh, don't worry about it. I'll read them to you. I'll pick up.
Okay.
Sometimes I join them together. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. It's all verbal here. So, but one of the things we see is a lot of disengagement from voting politics and issues. I think increasingly we're seeing folks that feel demoralized by the election process, or different representatives at different levels of the government aren't really paying attention to issues that matter. So I wonder if you could share a little bit, like, what would you say to folks out there to get them engaged with good policy, like we've been describing here? Get involved in politics like you did. You raised your hand, you stood up. Politics is not easy in your county or anywhere, and particularly with their right to vote, with what we're seeing as far as the challenges that are being put out there that are getting in the way of access to voting that is unencumbered, and the sort of assaults on democracy. Is there a message in particular that you want to deliver? Any advice that you can have for people that are just feeling like, it just doesn't matter anymore? It doesn't seem like it's making a difference.
No, I go through the same frustrations myself, and it's very difficult, especially once I started to run and campaign, and I'm trying to speak to everybody that I could have about voting and the importance of voting and how angry I really would have to, like, Jessica, calm down. It's okay. I mean, they don't want to vote, and they would tell me, oh, it doesn't matter. Politicians are politicians. My vote is never going to matter. So why? I don't care. I've never voted. And it is really difficult. Again, I was thinking about this question, and I think ultimately, I think engaging in good policy and politics is a way to get people to vote. Because look how your life has changed. It's changed for the better because of this policy. Maybe that's what's going to get people to vote and make a difference in the world. But again, it's about, again, being active and being in people's faces. That's, I did get a few people to register to vote by talking to them, but it is very, very, very discouraging. Telling them to be part of the solution. It's more than just elections. It's, who, again, going back to reproductive rights. If you don't vote, look what's happening. Look what's happening to our rights as women, as our rights to make choices with our own bodies. Change starts with you. I mean, so many things that we can start talking to people about. I've done them all. It is still frustrating, and I guess also learning to be kind and learning to not get so frustrated, because you're still going to get back, a lot of pushback anyway, but still trying to keep up the good fight of trying to get people to vote and trying to, knock some sense into people that don't think that their vote matters. And of course, those people that think that their vote doesn't matter, people that have probably been really hurt, people that, things have gone really bad in their lives. And having that compassion for them as well. So again, I think that ultimately engaging in good policy and politics is going to get some of those people that have really been disenfranchised, really do think that nothing matters, their vote doesn't matter, will probably get them to vote. And seeing people like them, right? Like, all right, well, it's not just all old white men. It's people that look like you, talk like you, came from where you came from. So I think that having diversity is a big issue too. That might get people to vote, talking like them, sounding like them.
Well, and I think that makes a huge difference. And you talked about something here about being a woman and for young women. What challenges has that posed in politics in particular? And what advice would you give women who feel like their voice is not being heard or they're not being represented to get more involved? Sort of, what has that been like for you? And what opportunities and advice would you give someone who wants to follow in your footsteps to become a leader in the community in a position like the legislature or in their town council or even on a board or commission for zoning or planning?
I mean, besides being, you have to have a lot of courage. You really want to have to do this. I think also is balancing your responsibilities was really scary, because I think as women, we often juggle so many responsibilities, work, family, community involvement, and that makes it so challenging, right? To find time to run for office and engage in activism, and also how personal it becomes. And that's really scary, like seeing your name on the newspaper, getting that Google alert that your name is somehow being mentioned. You have to have a thick skin. Not saying that women do not have thick skin, but it is, I can speak for myself. It was scary for me. And having the financial backing and the resources. And that's been the scariest part. Raising money has been a challenge. I'm not used to asking for people for money. And I think that to me was also balancing was a huge deal, and the access to the resources. Even with my counterparts, they're like, Jessica, just ask them to max out. I still I find it challenging, and I'm being totally vulnerable here, right? To ask somebody to max out, I feel bad. I have found it interesting as well that some people have maxed out on my male counterparts, but not on myself. And that makes me really angry. And I don't know, what to do about it, except that next time I will have the courage and the gals to ask what I want. Again, having other women around, use me, there's a lot of women that I just have asked, can you be my mentor? And a lot of people really do enjoy that. They like, absolutely, that's very kind of you. Whatever it is that you need. So that's what I would tell women that want to run for office. It's absolutely real, balancing your responsibilities, access to resource is a big deal. And all the expectations that you have regarding the gender roles, and it's still challenging when I sit in my committees and I'm usually the only woman. Or what I look at leadership and it's mostly men. It is definitely still a challenge, but one that I want to take on, and I don't want to feel sorry for myself, and I don't want to. I want to still keep up the good fight and still be in their face, because I think we are going to make a difference. But I think definitely just being courageous and having a good support system is the name of the game.
Well, I think one thing that you said, the raising money part, definitely resonates with me. It is definitely uncomfortable, but what I would say too is, from everything you've described, from the outside, just chatting with you here, it's also an investment. By investing in you and your candidacy, we make sure that around the table there is an individual who can share a unique set of perspectives that without which you being there would not be present. And then all kinds of assumptions and business as usual would just go forward. And what and who would be left out in each step of the lawmaking process or the budgeting process, where we're flowing money into different buckets to go to communities. To me, that is worth investing in, and of course there is, you need the extra cash to be able to do it. But I would highly encourage you to not be worried about making the ask, because it's an investment for communities in the work that you're doing that really will benefit them and their families. And so I think it's just an amazing opportunity. And so, get over the fear, as easy as that is to say.
I know, I get it.
As the investment in that, that role that you're playing, which is hugely significant.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, right? I mean, it's believing in yourself, and I do believe in myself. I mean, when I think back on just my trajectory and in life, and going to college and then going to law school, I was so scared, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I felt so out of place, but you learn to believe in yourself and you build a support network, and you're persistent. I'm still going to be persistent. I'm still, I'm giving you my fears, but then at the end of the day, I push them down, and I'm persistent, and I'm educating myself.
To be fair, the question was, what advice would you give to folks, right? And so from that perspective, these are things that will come up when folks are thinking about getting involved. So no, there are other folks out there who will help you. You have to ask. You don't get anything you don't ask for. And it's okay, in one part of politics is raising money. And so you do need to ask friends to invest in you and what you're bringing to the table. And so that's great. So we're going to go to audience questions. There's a number of them. First one I'm going to go to here, and appreciate the folks at Friends of Liberty State Park for doubling down and seconding our amazing gratitude for the work you're doing on the revitalization plan from the Department of Environmental Protection. Alex Ambrose from New Jersey Policy Perspective asks, mass transit is incredibly important to your district. We talked about that, the economy, for traffic safety, and for reducing air pollution. So what do you hear from your constituents about New Jersey Transit and their concerns about its future?
So I hear a lot of things regarding mass transit from my constituents. Of course, the price hike, but in regards to the environment, bike paths, bike paths, bike paths. Also, this was interesting as well. Campaigning and knocking on doors. A lot of disabled people that are on wheelchairs. Like, what do we do? We're having to use the bike path because our sidewalks are just terrible. Which was, again, a perspective that I'd never thought about. But definitely the bike paths and the use of public transportation, the clean cars, the electric cars are a big deal, and
Yeah.
I get it. It's important to me. I live in the city. I try not to use my car as much as I can. Try to take public transportation as much as I can. Thank God I live in the city where I can walk to many places. And also I don't use a lot of gas. I get to leave my car parked. So that's a great thing. It's very interesting because, you know, I was a South Jersey girl and we drove everywhere. And now I don't have to do that. I can get a car and, you know, not put a lot of miles on it. And I
Yeah,
try to do that anyway.
yeah. And we're supportive of, major investments at New Jersey LCV in public transportation. It seems like, I don't know, New Jersey Transit has been stuck in, I don't know what decade, but it's like the decade from before I was a student in high school. And with it comes aging physical infrastructure of the trains and safety concerns, but also kind of a ridership experience that doesn't make it really appealing. And we also have a backlog. So there's a big shortfall in the budget. The governor has proposed a transit fee. We're supportive of, $1 billion investment through the corporate business tax, which, the way it was basically in December 31st of last year. Corporations with net profits $1 million or more, it'll generate $1 billion of revenue. It's a surcharge on corporate income, but the corporations need to do their part to invest in our communities where they're located. And so that's something that's really important for us. That was a good Cedar question, Alex. We appreciate it. Anne Marie also asks, there's talk in years past about Puerto Rico becoming a state. What do you think about that? What's your position? You must get this question. So
Oh boy. So that's a very interesting question. I grew up in the political party that Puerto Rico should stay as a Commonwealth. And now as I've grown up, I see the injustice, how Puerto Rico is treated, the lack of accountability, that we are not treated as citizens, which we are. And now I am questioning my political affiliation of how I was brought up. And it's funny, my parents will probably kill me because when we were young, we thought the people that wanted Puerto Rico to become a state really didn't love Puerto Rico. But now just seeing the devastation and just how we don't, the minimum wage is $9.50 in Puerto Rico, how corporations, most from New Jersey, are in Puerto Rico. All the big pharma is in Puerto Rico, and they're still paying them minimum wage. They don't have to pay them overtime. They don't have to give them medical insurance. And if we were a state, they wouldn't do us like that. So now I am definitely leaning towards Puerto Rico becoming a state. But I know that to Puerto Ricans that don't believe that, it's like giving up being Puerto Rican, which that's how I was raised. But now I see the devastation and it makes me so sad.
well, it's political evolution. I mean, these issues are not black and white, easy breezy, or they would have been dealt with in a lot of different ways. And it appears to me that many cases there are folks out there that have a vested interest in spreading misinformation about a paradigm that they can benefit from currently. And so change is always hard. And then you add on the extra layer of folks that are trying to make money based on the current system, and any change would, shrink their bottom line. And, they're out there feeding and seeding, maybe distrust in the change that already is uncomfortable, whether it's, whatever we're trying to go for. So next up from the Latino Action Network Foundation, which is one of the co-sponsors today, Jessie asks, what kind of legal education around domestic violence do you find Latino immigrants need most, given your experience and expertise?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I think, again, going back to teaching them that New Jersey has one of the strictest domestic violence laws. So in New Jersey, if you get a restraining order, it's for life. Whereas in New York, California, I always go back to, when I do my seminars, I go back to the Rihanna and Chris Brown story. And I mean, like, we saw the pictures, it was bad. And his restraining order was for 5 years. And in New Jersey, it's not like that. In New Jersey, you're going to get DNA tested, you're going to get swabbed, you're not going to be able to own guns. And that's very interesting because it's come up in cases that I've had where I had a gentleman that had a restraining order, and he had a business where he would take hunters back to Argentina, and he needed his guns here in New Jersey so he can practice. And like, yeah, you're not going to be able to have any guns. You're going to have to close up shop. So I think the education and the fact that you get a temporary restraining order. A lot of people think that they have to go to the police, and sometimes the police officers are dismissive sometimes, and that they have another option. They can go to the court, and the court, usually a judge will more likely to give the restraining order. So all those little nuances, they just don't know the law. And knowing that it's for life, and knowing that a lot of times we're like, well, if I get a restraining order, how am I going to get child support? All that gets figured out once you get that restraining order. Again, it's a process that the court does. So it's a lot of nuances that people don't know about.
And would you say that when the police are responding to a domestic violence situation in New Jersey, and your district in particular, that, that there's been sort of a lot of emphasis on training, that first responder sort of interaction, whether it's, physical violence or emotional violence, and sort of how to handle that, de-escalate it, and also protect in the case of women that are being abused? Is that an area that needs improvement? You think we're doing okay? Or is that something you feel like is excellent and a stellar example?
I wouldn't say it's excellent. I think one of the biggest issues is that the language barrier is very difficult. So and you can't fault the police, and you can't fault them, they don't speak the language. If we can have, I've thought of if we can have a line, a language line that they can call, because sometimes maybe the male is the one that speaks English and can speak to the police officers, and the woman who, and I'm just going to say the woman's the victim in this scenario, she's not able to get across what happened because she doesn't speak the language, or she's really scared. And the man is able to, hey, this is what's happening. We just got into a fight. She just got mad because she went through my phone, and it was a girl, whatever, And I think the language barriers, the biggest deal. And, I mean, it's usually a very chaotic scene, and there's a lot of moving parts. So it's very difficult for the police officer as well. I mean, I have to give it to them. It's a hard job. So we can have some type of, I think usually when there's a police officer that speaks the language, they can better assess. Again, because if you don't speak the language, it's like you're blind. Like you can't say who you are. I always say to my friends, my parents are really, really funny in Spanish, because they can't be funny in English. So you just don't really get to know what's going on when you don't know the language.
What do you do if you don't have parents that are funny in any language? That's a different story. Well, in Franklin Township, where I live, Somerset County, there are 47 native languages spoken at home. And so language barriers are real, and in a diverse community, they present barriers. And I think that there's a whole host of other related sorts of things that we need to make sure we're careful of, so folks feel comfortable going to the police and sharing their information. But you highlight a really important one. So a couple environmental questions to sort of close us out. I'm looking at the time. So Brian mentions that clearly from everything that you've described, he's impressed with your environmental credentials and the commitment that you have. Raj Mukherjee, a senator in your district, is stepping up as the prime sponsor of a bottle deposit bill, like we have in New York and Connecticut, the little 5 cents, 10 cents, et cetera, which has been shown to increase recycling rates, kind of creates a market, right, for folks to pick up those items if they're just being left on the street right now. Is that something you think you can support? And, particularly there's some things here around some other environmental issues. So I'll ask about the bottle bill first.
Sure. I mean, I'm definitely in support of recycling. I am very strict in my household. Sometimes if I go through the trash and I see a plastic bottle, my son knows he's going to get into a lot of trouble. So yes, absolutely. I mean, without a question, for sure. That's an easy question. Yes.
There you go, Brian. And then, the other thing sort of to think about is if I've been watching TV a lot, and these commercials by Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they're getting together to convince us that plastic is amazing, and like their plastic is recyclable, and it's, complete the circle. But the truth is, Coca-Cola and these companies are the biggest users of the petroleum product that is plastic. We know these microplastics are in everything. They're in our blood. They're in the polar bears, right? And we really need to do something to move away from that. So, of course, reusing bottles in schools instead of giving out water bottles makes sense. The old milk carton is a tried and true sort of compostable way to deliver liquids. We got away from that. Again, it's probably going to cut it on their bottom line. I'm not sure how we got from the bottles, that were washed and then reused to what we have today, but without lawmakers, without individuals and families standing up, even businesses moving away from those products to send a message, we're going to continue to be not only polluted in our bodies, but polluted in our communities. We did a street cleanup. It's unbelievable how much recycling was just out there. It doesn't make its way. And one thing that Brian mentions here too is advanced recycling. This is sort of a fake thing that's coming from industry to basically make us more dependent on fossil fuels. And so he's calling that out there, this so-called advanced recycling and its impact in creating toxic gases in environmental justice communities, and asking for support on that as well. I'm sure he can reach out to you with more details there. So
yeah, we need more recycling plants, right? I really feel like I really don't have much trash. Most of my stuff is recycling. So that's a big issue. And, I was reading an article the other day, they were finding plastic in our brains. I mean, it's just, outrageous. So.
Yeah, so but the advanced recycling in most cases, I should put air quotes, advanced recycling generally means really polluting, bad for communities where this recycling is occurring. It's not like just melting the plastic down and making a new bottle. It's like digesting and getting back to its component parts, and with it, all kinds of toxic byproducts make their way into our air. And there's just, my background's in chemistry, so I'm not going to get into it. So just be careful, I guess, is the kind of measure here, is like advanced recycling is not better recycling. It's not like recycling 2.0. It's like bad. So, all right. Elliot Rugen, our friend from the New Jersey Highlands Coalition, works in the Highlands area, and he writes here, Jersey City has significant investment in protecting water quality of the Highlands, which is very much aligned with the Highlands Coalition mission. And Jersey Waterworks, which is right up along 287 and route 46/80 in sort of that corridor. The drinking water from Jersey City in part comes from that reservoir, right? So this area in the Highlands is filtering the water that the Jersey City residents are using. And so in the open space preservation world, we always say like nature is our best engineer. Open space, preserved land helps provide that water filtration. So it's beneficial for all communities. New Jersey being the most densely populated state with 13% of our state covered in concrete or pavement, we've got challenges there. And so he's making an invitation here to join the director for a van tour of the Highlands at your convenience.
I would love that. Please reach out to me because I love doing facility tours. Again, one of the when I went to the water supply company commission, that was one of my favorite facility tours that I've done. So please, absolutely, I would love that.
Perfect. And I think we covered most of the questions there that had come in. We're getting close to the end of time here, so I want to thank you again. If any closing thoughts or comments that you want to share before we
No, just thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with everyone, and what a great turnout as well on a Tuesday at 6 to 7. So again, I'm just really thankful. I'm learning, I'm new. I'd love to hear from everybody and what good ideas or interesting ideas I should be looking into. Again, this is not what I do for a living, so it's not always in the front of my my front head, but it's something that I'm really interested as a human, as a person. So please reach out to me.
Well, thank you. Amazing. We're incredibly grateful to have this time with you, to have a little heart-to-heart sort of chat about your first few months on this new not job responsibility, which is critical. And we look forward to continuing to work with you in the session and beyond. We'd love to have you come join us at the gala on June 10th at 5:30 at the Palace in Somerset, which is my
So
hometown.
my son is graduating, so I am not going to be here, but I did get.
Well, that's a pretty good
Yes.
excuse. Yeah, that's a good reason.
But my chief of staff will be able to join if she's not away. But
All right, great.
my son graduates, so I won't be here.
Well, tell him congratulations from all of us. It's quite an accomplishment. It's exciting. So we'll be thinking of him on that Monday night. For anyone else who wants to join us, we'll drop a link in the chat so you could click on it. We'd love to have you come and join us. Feel free to follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and if there is a TikTok, we may join it someday, depending on what the federal government decides to do. We would love to have you come join us at our gala, as I mentioned, on June 10th. We're grateful to everybody who joined us, particularly our co-sponsors. We'd love to stay connected with all of you. So please do keep in touch and have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we look forward to continuing to work together. There's also a link here you can click on to call on your elected officials to support 100% clean electricity by 2035 and get that dirty pollution from fossil fuels out of our air. Thanks again.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Have a
Take
good night, everybody. Bye.